Hello, one and all, and welcome to Office Hours. We've been answering your media and tech-related production questions every single day since March of 2020. Alexander Knight from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, in Canada, is our reader today. Alexander, what do we got?
First question is coming in from Harold Williams in Portsmouth. I created a logo using an AI platform, but my friend used it in his artwork as if it was his own logo. I felt heartbroken because I believed he used it without my permission. Did the logo belong to me, or was it the property of the AI platform?
Alex Lindsay's going to help you out with this thorny issue.
No one knows. No one knows who it belongs to because it belongs to all of us. Really, there's not really any protection if you build something in AI for your content unless you do significant changes to it afterwards. So if you retraced it, fundamentally changed the look, other things like that, and use that as a base, you might have a chance to go down that path. But if it's just something you created in AI, you probably don't have any kind of leverage there. The good news is that you built it on an AI platform. You can probably build another one that looks as good or better really quickly because you have AI, and now you know who your friends are and who they aren't. because I can tell you, if someone did that to me, that would be pretty much the end. Like it would just be like, hang up, So that would pretty much be the end of a however long that relationship is. Someone just taking something and acting. To me, that's a function of. That is a whole lot of hurt on there, and that would be the end of. If someone showed me that that's who they are, that would be the end.
Someone early in my career in a trade show was up on stage, and I walked toward them, and I realized they were talking to the notable person who was giving the lecture and showing their work, and it was my work. We had worked together on a project. They literally were showing the stuff that I had produced and talking about how they did it, and exactly as Alex said. That was the end of that little relationship.
It's not a function of being angry about that thing. It is a function of someone willing to put you in danger or willing to take things from you. It's just not the kind, who you surround yourself with is so important, and it's just easier to get rid of people like that. Like there's 8 billion people in the world, and you don't need that one. And so.
Once you breach trust, it's very hard to recover it, and I think that's true of all humans. Courtney, you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, you can't enforce the copyright laws using the AI, but you can tell your friend that you've now created a new friend using AI, and that is your new friend. He's put on the out list.
Here's the worst part is I wouldn't even tell him that anything. Like it would literally just be suddenly I'm not available. The one thing I will say is that I don't get into fights over. I generally don't get into fights. I just turn the switch off. It's not. It is not a. Really think about. I think people get into this thing like they have to get into a fight with someone when they did something to them, and I just find that the easiest thing to do is just flick the switch down, and then that's it, and it can be done nicely. It's like in the industry that I was in for a long time, visual effects. If you said, "Oh, I worked with this person," and people said, "Oh, yeah," and then didn't say anything, if like 2 or 3 people were silent about that person, that just meant that they probably were hard to work with.
I just don't understand it, too, because if you're standing up saying, this is the level of work I can do, and you can't because you've taken it from somebody who can do work at that level, you're eventually going to be exposed.
I think there's a whole lot of fake it till you make it kind of stuff. Like if I just have a chance, if I just had a little bit more, if I just had, and especially folks that aren't very creative or aren't very good at what they do, there's a tendency to grab onto other people's stuff, to try to figure out some way to leverage themselves into that position. But the expense of that is so high that it's rarely worth it. But again, the most valuable thing you got out of this, Harold, is not so much the logo, but understanding that that's probably not the person you need to hang out with.
Yeah. And that feeling that you can do that work and you can do it over and over again and nobody can take that away from you. They can steal
They still can. If you do it in AI, they still can take that away from you.
I guess you're right. Those rules have a little changed, haven't they? Well. Next question.
Eddie Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida, USA is asking thoughts on new Apple camera sensor rumors, and it looks like there's a link to an article there.
Yeah, there's been some big kerfluffle about that. Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway is going to start us off here. Ronnie?
Yeah, so I've looked a little bit into this, and the tech is kind of promising. They are integrating different types of technology on the same kind of stacked sensor, and they have been filing loads and loads of patents these years about image technology. And even though there are other manufacturers that are using some types of stacking in their sensors, the way that Apple suggests to do it here is kind of intriguing. And I have to say that a lot of this, I think, also comes from computational. So the processor behind this image sensor will probably be working hard, like they are doing already on most of the iPhones and iPads, etc. So I'm not sure that this image chip is going to be revolutionizing anything, but I think the combination with the software and the hardware that Apple makes will be a kind of a new thing. And if they are going to really compete with the big guns in this industry, I'm not sure, but I will look forward to take a look at these chips inside cameras or phones, etc., that are coming from Apple in the coming years.
Alex, your take?
Apple generally has far more engineers working on their sensor than any camera company. And I don't even think Sony has as many engineers working on their chips as Apple does. The last time I heard it was 400 engineers just working on that, and that was a decade ago. So I think that the reason for that is that the cash cow for Apple is the phone, and the way you get people to upgrade to the phone is the camera. The camera is 80%. 80% of why someone gets a new camera, if you look at the stats, is because they want a better. I mean, why they get the phone is because they want a better camera. Like that. That's what people are upgrading for. They can have the phone does kind of everything else they need it to do, right? It answers. You can go on Instagram. You can do your phone calls. You can do all those other things. What makes the phone different is the camera. And so as a result, Apple spends billions on this camera. So I don't know I think that they would put a full frame sensor in there if they could. But what they're trying to do is make the most out of what they have. And I think that you're going to see them, so high dynamic range and very low noise is exactly what you need for a phone. Like to be able to shoot at night. I mean, even now when you shoot in the evening, with an iPhone 15 or 16, it is insanely good. Like it is, it could be better. And this is going to make it better. Is it going to come out next year? Probably not. This is probably a patent that's going to cover 20. I mean, it could. Patents take a long time. So maybe they filed for it a long time ago. But if they just filed for it, it's probably a 2027, 2028 kind of sensor. But still, that's usually what everyone's watching for is what does the camera look like for every new phone? And they're not trying to sell to the last year. They're trying to sell to 2 or 3 years ago. Like, look at how good this is. And it's finally jumped enough for you to buy it.
Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, I was just trying to see what the size was to see if they're thinking about getting into the camera market rather than just putting it into phones and iPads. It's probably going to be for the phones and iPads. It's a dual die, multi-layer circuitry that has the noise removal, thermal noise removal, and a second die that's below the sensor. And that's how they're achieving this computational right on each pixel. Each pixel has dynamic noise reduction, thermal noise reduction built into it. So on the second die. So I think it'll achieve a lot better low light, noise-free capture. So look for better nighttime photography in your iPhones in the future.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's asking, I was watching a video of walking through New York City and was amazed at the sharpness of some of the Times Square signs in the shot. Is sharpness in an LED display a function of pixel pitch?
Ronnie Hofsway is going to start us off here. Ronnie?
Yes, and there is also a few other things like distance. So lots of these clips that you are watching in this video is actually on a certain distance, kind of long distance. So obviously that will cause the angle between each pixel to be very, very small and seen as very high resolution. The last festival we did this summer, which is Children's Festival, we had a full HD signal going into a relatively old LED screen. I think the resolution was something like 768 432 or something, and the kids didn't seem to be bothered about that. So that's kind of just a small fraction of the full resolution provided in the original source. So watching that from a distance, I was watching that display from far, far, far away. I took a picture of that. Probably should show that to you guys as well, but I don't have it here. And the picture looked really, really sharp. So distance and pixel pitch is really important.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, typically you won't get super tight pitch outside just because you need some air to be able to move through it for a variety of reasons. And so the tightest that I've seen personally is 0.9, but I doubt these are 0.9. These are probably in the 1.7 to 2.6, somewhere in that range is probably where you're seeing these. And some of them look like, when I look at them kind of from the side, you can kind of see the sheen across them, look like they're probably a little bit larger than that, but they've gotten much better. I think that when we first saw them, they were in the 5 to 10 range, maybe a couple of years ago. So things have gotten a lot better. There's so much money in those. There's no reason for them not to put the best signs up, and so they replace them more often than many other places because there's just a lot of money behind it. And the higher resolution, the more real it feels, and hopefully the more they can charge for it for them. So I think that you'll constantly see that. But yeah, the pitch is there. It's also the resolution of the what's coming to the screen. Sometimes the screens are so high resolution, it's hard to send every pixel a new piece of information. So you really need to look at the processors and can they address all of those, or is it a 4K image being scaled up to 6K or a 8K image being scaled up to 12K? Those are all challenges as well. I did look at Stats for Nerds. This guy's walking through with that's a 4K 60 image. I thought, I was like, wow, this looks really sharp, and it's because he shot it. I mean, you can do that with your phone now, but it is. And I also, by the way, this is probably just slightly disconnected. Is if you hold control on YouTube, I'm always copying embed codes for Mukana, but I go down and I do this weird way of getting the embed code. I didn't realize you could. Everyone on the panel probably already knows this, but you can hold the control key and click on it, and it'll just copy the embed code. It's just one click. I just thought I'd put it out there.
Don't forget, we're always taking your questions. That's what runs our entire show. You can ask questions, chat about the questions, vote on them in Mukana. That's our live Q&A system. It's on, and people are talking about the show in the back end. So if you want to get into all of that, go to officehours.global/join. That's officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or two. Once you've kind of gone through a couple of little hoops, you can hop in and enjoy even more chat about the show in Mukana. That's officehours.global/join. Next question.
Peter Rosado in Las Vegas, Nevada is asking, I am poking around, is there such a thing as HDMI input/converter to feed a USB-C only monitor, HDMI to USB-C?
Courtney Gooden's going to help you out here. Courtney?
Yeah, probably depends on the monitor that you're plugging it into. Of course, there are devices, that can output USB-C video over USB-C from, HDMI inputs, like the Video Assist from Blackmagic. Their 12K will output a webcam signal over USB-C, or you could get something like this as HDMI input to USB-A output and then convert it from A to C and give you basically a webcam type video output over that USB-C. The problem you're going to run into is a lot of those monitors expect to see power coming in over that USB-C as well as the video signal. Because they're designed to plug into a laptop or something else that outputs USB-C power and video at the same time. So it may not work in either of those situations unless there's a separate power input for that monitor. And these are kind of two different signals. The video output over, display output over USB-C versus camera input over USB-C may not be the same signal type. So your monitor may not recognize it.
Alex?
One note that I learned last week between these USB-C. Now, I'm going to go the other direction, Peter, from USB-C to HDMI. There's a company, Uni, which I buy a lot of my stuff from. Two different HDMI cables here. One is one of those HDMI cables is a $12.99. The other one's $15.99, and I can tell you the difference. You can see that I bought them December 2020 and July 2022. I bought each one of those. What's the big difference between the two? the less expensive one only sends stereo. And after an hour of trying to figure out why I wasn't getting 8 channels, I thought, well, maybe I'll change the cable. In fact, I asked Janice, which is the my name for Janet, which is my name for ChatGPT, and ChatGPT asked me to change the cable, so I changed it 8 channels. So
Janet's paying attention.
Yeah,
good for her. Next question.
Paul Wahus in Austin, Texas. For a 2-person run-and-gun interview kit, what's one piece of non-obvious utility gear, beyond cameras, mics, lights, that you consider essential for solving unexpected problems in the field?
Okay, buckle up. This is going to go long and fun. Alexander Knight, start us off. What kind of toys do you love?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of things, so I'll just kind of quickly go through this. I won't spend too much time on it, but have lots of good quality gaffer's tape. I like Dabco. That's an American-made brand, but there's lots of other good brands out there. And then, of course, a portable soldering iron kit. It's always good to make basic repairs if you need to. You can find these on Amazon that are USB-C, PD charge capable, and they're really, really tiny, and they fit in your bag. And then get yourself a couple of different cable testers. They're not cheap. Some of the good ones, like these Fluke ones, that is a network PoE tester. I would also head over to Rat Sound and get yourself some of these if you're dealing with analog audio, XLR sniffer senders. The cool thing that I like about these things, other than traditional cable testers, which require both ends of the wire, they have cable testers that do not require both ends of the wire to go in, because sometimes that's not exactly convenient. You can put some of these Rat Sound cable testers into one end, and it will tell you if that cable is actually working or not. They also have cable testers for DMX as well. And then, of course, there's also the traditional cable tester box that runs off a 9-volt battery. And there's lots of companies like Whirlwind and DBX makes one. There's lots of companies that make very, very similar ones that will do analog audio. They will do 5-pin DMX. They will do MIDI. They will do 1/4 inch. They'll do speak on, RCA, unbalanced, balanced, all that sort of stuff. So those are the first things that I can think of that come to mind. I'm sure lots of other suggestions we'll have in here.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, Leatherman would be the one that I find myself having to pull out quite often. And then a good flashlight. On this last gig, I wound up using this one that my son recommended to me. It's called an O-light, and basically it's a USB. This end's a USB, and then it's a little magnet with the light, and so you can stick it on. I don't have anything nearby that's magnetic, but to turn it off, you just put it back on. So a good little flashlight. And then I like these little clamps by Triad Orbit, so I could clamp onto something and then hook in the other side, and then I could put another clamp or a 1/4-20 or a 5/8. So I carry around a bunch of these in my backpack. And the other tool that I really like a lot is the Hyperdeck, the Blackmagic Video Assist. And this is kind of the Swiss Army knife that gives you a little monitor, but you could also do mini XLR in, you could do SDI to HDMI conversion, you could check your scopes, you could hook up another hard drive to it to record for longer periods of time. So this is just a really nice, indispensable tool to have on the set.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
So I always bring my MacBook Pro. I bring, as already said, gaffer's tape, a super tool. We use the Wave as a standard. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned is a power bank and various cables, both to Lightning, USB-C, etc., for emergency charging of anything you would not need to charge. Of course, a headlight. Living where we are, it's kind of dark in the normal day as well. So using a headlight is often important. And also, since we are a bit up north, weather protection, like wind protection or a tent maybe would also be something we would, if this is an outdoor. And of course, heat packs for fingers in the winter and even in the summer, would some say.
Courtney Gooden.
I'm going to second Guy's suggestion of the Leatherman. They make all these different types of tools. with different things on them. The problem is with the Leatherman, if you're going to plan on traveling, do not carry it in your carry-on. They will confiscate it from you. As is now, I think I heard from in my sleep last night in a news broadcast that couple of French airlines have outlawed power banks on in the carry-on luggage. So if you're planning on powering up your with lithium-ion batteries, powering up your phone, recharging your phone, or running your iPad for a very long time on a long flight, you may not be able to take that power bank on board if you're traveling on a French airline. The other thing I like to carry a lot of is gender adapters. This is a female-to-female HDMI adapter. I always carry a handful of those along. I also carry little PC stick computers because these come in really handy. Gives you a whole nother source of video for playback or for control or for doing anything you want. I slip this in my laptop bag with a power supply for it, and I got it as an HDMI out. And I have a full Windows 10 or 11 computer along with me as a backup for anything that has a monitor on it. Useful also in hotel rooms when you need to have a computer and you don't have your laptop or you don't want to carry a laptop with you.
Alex Lindsay. Oh, no, gone. For me, the one thing that I would want for a run-and-gun two-person interview is a very high-quality snap-on transmitter for a stick mic. That's the one thing that if I'm run-and-gun, I don't have time to set up a Menace arm or something like that to fly a mic over somebody in an interview situation. A long-handled dynamic interview mic with a plug-on transmitter is my go-to for that kind of thing where you're out doing ENG-type interview capture. So lots of good suggestions here. I hope that was helpful. Next question.
QR code question coming in from Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm looking at various portable lights for production and wondered if some of those could replace some of my portable construction type lights of similar lumen level.
Alexander Knight, your thoughts?
Construction grade lights are not ideal, and mainly because the quality of the LEDs are not they're not designed for video production. So the CRI level or the CRI spec, which dictates how good the quality of that light is usually a lot lower on that type of product. So I would recommend looking at, I don't know what your budget is, but I tend to go for more affordable, and Amaran, which is the more affordable line for content creators, which is from Aperture. They've got a whole line of different LED lights, from cob to LED panels to some flat LED stuff. Like I just got one of these. I really like these Amaran F22Xs. When you say portable too, it depends on how big we're talking about. Like, are we talking about something that you want to fit in a carry-on on a plane? That's a different story. These pack pretty flat. This is their bicolor F22X, which is a 2x2. And you can see sort of on their website here, people assembling it. But it comes with a carry case. You might be able to get that into a carry-on. It's really not that big, but you can see it's just a flat foldable LED panel, and it's very, very easy to assemble. And of course, they also have various options in different sizes for LED panels, like the Pano 120 and Pano 60 LED lights are really, really cool. And they're USB-C powered, or you can run them on battery. And of course, they have these tube light options of different sizes, 2 feet and 4 feet. So I would seriously look at Amaran for portable stuff.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, there's also this whole portability factor of being able to pull out kind of your bag of tricks and have this stuff just magically get huge. So the portable lights you're talking about from like Home Depot or something like that, they wouldn't really travel well into a carry-on, but you would be shocked as to how small some of these more professional solutions can fold down to. I was just in LA on a shoot, and the rental house brought in a pallet full of stuff that we had ordered, and the DP was looking at it, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm missing this piece," and he's like, "Oh, I might have one in my truck," and he ran out and grabbed it, and it was a snoot of some kind that was able to get a backlight on I think it was an Aperture 600. But it's amazing that these guys have this stuff that's portable, but it can get you this specific look. So when you get a construction style light, it just sprays light everywhere. And these guys are like so picky. I mean, they can toss hard light where they want it, or soft light where they want it. So when you don't have the right tool for the job, the image really suffers because you can't do flagging or cutting off of light, negative fill, changing from one color to another. So if you have sunlight coming in and you have tungsten coming in and you want to do some kind of bicolor match, you can't really do that with these other lights without resorting to a bunch of gels and things like that. So how small do you want to get it? And then the other thing is these construction style lights, the batteries aren't the same as in the professional field. We could see by the minute what we're getting down to. So you don't want one of these things turning off in the middle of a shoot, especially if it's one of those emotional type moments where you can't get that moment back. So professional tools for professional jobs, and if you're just trying to squeak by, then use what you got, but just be aware of some of these shortcomings of the non-professional tools.
Ronnie Hofsoy?
Yeah, the way I read the question is if you can use professional lighting as construction lights. And I'm sorry if I did misread the question, but we do that all the time. And one of the reasons we use professional lights for doing construction work is sometimes when we have to paint something. And the CRI, so the quality of the color rendering index is one number that is really important for me. So I use the lights to be sure that I see the color I need to be seen. And I have a lot of designers around me that are requesting me to have this or this color on something. And that is why we use professional lighting for doing construction work. So I'm sorry if I misread the question, but that is how I interpret it.
Hey, don't forget, we have extra shows that are coming up. Now, extra hours on Monday, every Monday. So last night, for those around the world for whom the main show timing doesn't quite fit for you. And we're doing more and more shows all the time. On Thursdays, The Rundown with David Paskin hosts a panel that takes a deep dive into the why behind the latest technology. So we are increasingly looking at additional shows. Pay attention. Look on the website. You'll find links. Next question.
Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri, USA. How is the X live stream doing?
Alex, have you taken a look?
It's working. It works. There's not a lot of people watching it. I don't know what makes it watch or not, but it shows up. The upside of the X stream is that it takes no time at all. We have it pre-programmed for the encoder to start running, and the X just captures it and starts. If it gets a signal, I just told it was daily, and so if it gets a signal, it starts streaming, and so it's super unconscious for us to do it, but it's not necessarily generating a lot of views either. So that's how it's going.
John, next question.
This one's from John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Has anyone used the Nanlite app to control lights? How well does it work?
Alex, what do you think?
I have to admit, I own a lot of Nanlites, and I either control them by hand or I control them with DMX. And I used the app a couple of years ago and wasn't super successful with it. Robert Linkram says that he has both the app and the Nanlite wireless remote. Both work well. The wireless remote operates on many of the Nanlites. And Mickey said that it's sufficient to adjust static lighting setup, but not much more. You would not want to use it on a daily basis. So that's I found it to be not as stable as I'd like it to be, connecting to lights and so on and so forth. It's not. I think that the Aperture app and connection to its lights was much smoother when I tested it. But again, I use a lot of Nanlites. It's just that I don't use the app with them.
Next question.
Paul Vahus in Austin, Texas. How would you build a fully autonomous self-driving podcast studio?
Oh, this could get interesting. Alexander Knight, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm assuming you want something that doesn't have engineers and camera ops there. That's kind of hard to do because generally cameras need to be adjusted. You can get PTZ stuff with face tracking, I suppose. But I think one of the things that I would probably do is I would get something that could ISO record all the camera feeds where you can build a custom interface for people. So something like mimolive is cool because mimolive allows you to build this custom web-based buttons interface, and you can add as many buttons as you want, or you can make it as simple as possible. And I would probably put that on a big touchscreen monitor where someone can just push the button to, hit ISO record or whatever, and it would do its thing. But yeah, that's tough to do. I would still probably want to have people running stuff. You can set up an audio mixer and get it in the ballpark, but in reality, if it's, Paul, I don't know what the end goal is. Is it a space that you're trying to rent out? The problem with that is if you're going to have different talent coming in every week, you're going to have to adjust mic gain for every single talent and do sound checks for people. So you can get it reasonably in the ballpark, but that would make me very nervous to have a space where there's just 0 people there that know how to operate the gear. Maybe somebody else can chime in. I know Guy's probably done some stuff with his one-button studio.
Alex Lindsay is next.
Yeah, I built studios to do this. So there's a couple things that we found worked pretty well. Number one is you got to put all the controls in a box that no one can touch. You give them the buttons that they're allowed to use. Don't let them touch any of the other buttons. The biggest problem we had was smart people. Like, you build them for a corporation, and then someone who's a little bit smarter and knows a little bit about AV goes in and starts plugging and unplugging things because they want to do something different. You got to decide what the mission is for it. And then it does the mission, and that's all it does. Don't let it be super flexible, because it's very hard to have nobody managing it and have it be flexible at the same time. The other thing that we did ours often with hardware. So we were doing, the ones that we built were sitting on ATEM switchers. They had, we were using a very early version of Scarhoy controllers. We etched the buttons that they needed into metal, which gave it this really nice feel that you just I want to stream, I push the button. I want to do this, I push the button. I push the buttons. I want to switch to something, I push the button. And so all of that was there, and it was, in our case, it was a 3-camera capability with with the ability. And then what we did is did a lot of processing. The mics kind of are leveled to a certain level, and then there is a lot of processing on those mics to just kind of pull them together, which you can do relatively automatically. It's a little bit more advanced than AGC that brought them back together again. And it did an okay job. And we built a couple different kinds of these. We built ones that are probably similar to what Guy's going to talk about as well, where it's just one person sitting out doing a presentation. Watching the content, I found that it's actually watching the content from the studios that we built is how I came up with the saying that it's easy to make content or easy to watch content, but rarely both. When I watched my own studio's content, I just felt like it was as much as we could do without putting a person in there, but it felt really flat. And it just felt like it was just hard to watch for a long period of time. Not like it was bad, just like it was boring. So what we, where things are going now is, if you put just one person, to run the studio, everything gets much better. And you can give them a bunch of tools and do a bunch of other things, but it is dramatically better with a single person than the people who are doing the podcast trying to do everything else at the same time.
And the father of the one-button studio is next, Guy Cochran. Guy, take it away.
About the father, but it was actually a nonprofit that started the whole thing, starting at Penn State. But before I get into that, I just want to say that there was a church video that I watched recently where they had to solve this problem, and they did it with mix effect and an ATEM. And luckily, the same people were sitting in the seats, so they would come in, and it was very easy once it was set up. 3-camera shoot. So basically, with the person talking, the ATEM would get triggered by mix effect based on how loud the microphone was. So it's audio, video follows audio. And then when they both stop talking, you can set the parameter to go to the wide shot. So it would get the two of them together. So 3-camera shoot at the basic level, that works. But a couple people have alluded to the one-button studio, and I'll show you how advanced this thing has gotten. I'm no longer in charge of this. It's been passed on to my buddy Jason Jenkins. And what he's done is, this is behind the scenes is using mimolive, actually. And mimolive has this face recognition tracking where when a person comes into this studio and it sees a person, it turns on the light. So it knows, and it gets ready when it sees somebody walk in. And this is about $32,000. So this is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. It's got an Ultimat, it's got a teleprompter, it's got green screen, and then it's got an iPhone where you can configure using these 6 buttons. But basically, it tells you to go, and when it's done, here's the panel where you could move the position of the presenter around, or cut to the laptop that they plug in if they have a PowerPoint or something that they want to bring in. So that's all customized enclosure. And then towards the end here, when it's the cool thing is when the recording's complete, it uploads it to the cloud and then gives you an option to review the footage and gives you a QR code. So then you get the QR code. So this is going in a lot of university libraries and things like that, where now you just take a picture of that QR code and you can go retrieve your footage later. So it's really hands off with a student or these go into a lot of corporations as well, where they walk in, they sit down, they do their show, they take a picture of the QR code, the footage is waiting for them at the end, and they can put it on their favorite YouTube or CDN or wherever they want to put it. But a very interesting concept came out of Penn State. I did not invent it. I just bankrolled the development for years. And unfortunately, it didn't wind up working out during COVID because we couldn't sell any. But now they are selling like hotcakes because people are wanting to automate things. So a good question and worth looking at is mimolive. Especially one of the features we showed yesterday in the session was the ability, there's an Apple plugin that allows centering of a person talking. I'm sure Alexander could talk a little bit more about that feature, but it is a resource hog. As we found, we had to turn it off because the Mac Mini M4 couldn't handle doing it on 8 people. It could only handle did you turn it off completely, Alexander?
I turned it off, yeah. Yeah, it's just, it was taking up a little more resource. But very cool feature. I have used it, actually. I used it on one guest who just could not stay in the middle of their frame. It was so frustrating. And it was like, wow, that's just like magic. I don't have to do anything. That's fantastic.
And is it smooth when it moves the person back?
It's pretty it's not choppy. I would say sometimes the tracking is a little almost too quick, and I wish it had parameters. But hey, I mean, if it's a choice between someone being completely outside of the frame like this, I'd rather still have them tracked, even if it's not, it's not perfect. It's not as good as having a real camera operator there and moving a camera, but very useful if you need it.
Don't forget, if you'd like to get your questions in the simplest fashion possible, just go to askofficehours.global. That is our quick system, askofficehours.global. You can do it on any web browser. That's going to take you into the back end in a way that you can put your questions into the show very quickly, and they'll be vetted by somebody in the back end. So make sure you keep them clean, clear, one question per submission. Don't ask a whole series of questions. That will knock it out of the system and you won't get your question in, but that's the quickest way, askofficehours.global. Next question.
Rajan Chandel in Los Angeles. Can you compare the Sony FX2 to the Sony FX3? Any real-world use cases for the FX2?
Alexander Lindsay is going to help you out here.
Alex. Yeah, I think the FX2 looks like a great value. It's about $1,000 less, I think, than the FX3. It's full-frame sensor. It has a higher resolution sensor because it's more driven towards a hybrid than a video camera. Form factors are similar. The FX2 has a EVF on it, which you can't take off, which basically was the end. Like I was like, oh, this would be really cool. And then I got this weird little thing that I'm never going to use that stuck to the camera. And I was immediately like, no, never mind. like I can't, I get some people want an EVF. I guess if you wanted to use it as a still camera, using an EVF with a still camera makes sense. But EVS, I build kits around cameras. And so an EVF is just this weird thing that I have to manage, because I'm going to put a different monitor on it. I'm going to tie it to a bunch of other things. And so that was kind of the use killer. The only thing I would use an FX2 for is a web camera, like a really good one. It'd be a really good web camera. And someone said EVF, electronic viewfinder. So it's got like one of those little things you put your eye up to in the old days. And so some people still use them, I know, but I don't. That was kind of like I don't understand why that wasn't made modular, like that I can just pull it out, because I think that there's a bunch of people, but I don't know who. It literally left me with, I don't know who this is for when I saw the EVF. Like, I don't know who's going to buy this camera, because the new generation doesn't use EVFs, and it seemed like that's what they were aiming at. And I just don't know who's going to buy that, and that's not going to drive them crazy, because you put cages on your stuff almost immediately. If you're not, you're crazy. Like, take a little camera like that, and not put a cage on it, is crazy. So anyway, I don't understand. I mean, I was excited about the FX2, and I'm still excited about the possibility of using it as a web camera. It's a cost-effective, very good autofocus web camera, but for me, I wouldn't use it for anything else.
Yeah, for me, an EVF is it's a one-trick pony, and that is if I need critical look at a picture in the field in bad conditions, like there's sunlight overhead or something like that, that might wash out a flat panel display, even the better ones. The fact that you can stick your eye directly into an EVF and assess color and things like that without any additional light getting in to mess it up. But that's, like I said, a one-trick thing. I think that, I haven't used one in a long time.
The problem is that I need to see it on a big monitor. Like, I'm not going to make any decisions on. That's the issue with the EVF is that I am not going to make any decisions on an EVF. And I get that, and I don't, and I will admit, I don't shoot outside very much. I don't like shooting outside. so that's another piece of that. But I'm gonna if I'm gonna shoot outside, I have a video village. I have a 10 by 10 tent that doesn't have any light in it, and we're going in there and we're gonna look at what's going on. And I don't need somebody to tell me how it needs to look, because my Steadicam operator, my operator's got a bigger monitor on it anyway. Those all part of those kits, and so I was like, I thought about it for a while because I was excited about a full frame that costs less, yeah, I don't need to, I don't know why I would use that. And so I'm hoping that they do an FX1, I guess, or an FX 2.5 or whatever that doesn't have that EVF, because it would be a great camera without the EVF.
Next question.
Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington's asking, when not using equipment in the studio, do you store every item in a case and stack up cases, or have shelving and covers, etc.? I feel like I should be protecting everything, but cases take up a lot of space over time.
They do. Ronnie Hofsoy, your solutions?
Yeah, so what we do, we have a studio and we do stuff on the road, and we are out on the venues doing production. So we're kind of going where everything going on the road is securely transported in flight cases. And when we use it inside the studio venue, our own studio, we tend to just cover it with dust, like Molton or stage carpet or whatever we have at hand to just cover the equipment. Cameras and most of the lighting fixtures, etc., are just where they are, and not to be trying to talk myself out of this. This is a live feed from our entrance, and it's real. This is where we put our stuff when we're just coming in the door from any event. And as you can see, it's a really, really mess. We had intensive weeks these other days. And what we do, we take everything and sort it here. There is iron, there is a floss machine, there is fire extinguishers, and everything is kind of a mess. And what we do in this area is we put everything in their own plastic boxes. And from there, it goes into the shelves, we are in the process of color coding everything. So audio cables would have one color, video cables would have another color, and all the shelves are color coded, and they will have kind of a quick visual identification to see which box is going where, just to be quick and have a turnaround going in and out of the shelves. So that is how we are, and we probably will be making marks or logos, etc., on all the cables. But for now, we've started to use the color coding scheme to make sure every type of product is going in the right shelves.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I don't have a studio, so I don't have equipment that is set up in a permanent studio, so other than my living room here. So I've always gone the route of building the hardware into cases directly. I mean, I can show you, this is like our portable teleprompting system. It has the laptop built into this Pelican case. All of it, everything you need is there. The only thing you have to do when you get there is open it up, and plug in this one power cable there. The video outputs, there's a distribution amplifier on the second level here below the laptop. There's all the power supplies, distribution amplifier for the video, converters, things like that are all there. And on the back of the case, back here are waterproof connectors for B and C connectors to output the video or input DC power. The problem with building, and then of course when it comes back to the storage room, or it's going to go back into the shelf, it's closed up and it's hermetically sealed because Pelican cases are waterproof. And that's another good thing to consider is if you store your equipment in waterproof cases, they're ready to go at a moment's notice. You just grab them off the shelf and can throw them into a car or head for the airport without having to think about, packing it up. The only problem with this idea is if you're using battery-powered equipment is keeping the batteries charged so that you have topped-off batteries ready to go at a moment's notice in case there's an emergency shoot or something at the last minute you don't want to have to be dealing with. Oh, I'm ready to go, but all my portable equipment's in cases that haven't been charged in 6 months, and, the batteries are probably all dead. So, you have to keep your batteries outside the cases and charging if you're going to put them on the shelf. So keep that in mind, and you have to make sure that you remember to put the batteries back in the cases before you leave. Nothing worse than arriving at a shoot with no batteries.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, we tend to break things down pretty quickly to make it work. And with Pixel Core, we actually built these little slots. They're empty right now because I think I took this one. We were just finishing up and closing it up. But these worked out really well for us. We had lots and lots of hardware, and so these would fit the 19U systems, and you could just slide things into there. So you didn't have to install them anywhere. You could just, and we had these made from friends of mine built those for us. But you could slide these little pieces out. So you could slide them out, and what that allowed us to do, of course, is put a 2U or a 3U or a 4U in there, and it was nice and the felt was there to kind of keep them from getting scratched up and everything else. And you can see we had this one around all the way around in a big U, and it was full when it was fully operational. And so, but you'd keep all your Teranexes and all your HyperDecks and all your switchers all in different places, and you could adjust for those. But what was nice about it is they're not stacked on anything, they're not put back in boxes, and they're not screwed constantly into a rack. It was kind of the happy medium in between, and they worked really well for us. But yeah, we pulled most things out and carefully put them where they needed to go. One thing I will say is when you start, you don't want to use server nuts, like the little, you don't want things with the big square holes on it going down. Somewhere in the middle of your progression, you wish you had server nuts, so that you can, because what happens is someone goes, oh, they put the wrong screw in, and they, can drive all those screws on your rack out. And so when you're thinking about taking things apart and putting them back together, think about, all the things that are going to need to be replaced and managed over time.
Next question.
This question is coming from Jacob Goodnight in Indianapolis, Indiana. Alex, did you tweak your lighting setup since last week? It looks great with more cinematic light contrast.
Can you talk us through your lighting array now?
Thank you so much. I'm ready for my close-up.
You look so Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to say that I did a lot of thinking. I crossed my arms. I looked at my space. I was like, what can I do here to make it look more cinematic? And the answer is, we were short on lights, and I don't know the storage code because Kevin always goes up there. And so I was like, I better. As I just tore lights out of my system to do the lights for the shoot on Saturday. And so maybe I'll keep it. I'll probably go somewhere in between. I probably won't make it quite as cinematic, or maybe I'll make it this way for the show. I don't know. We'll see. It's a little too cinematic for regular meetings. But yeah, it just because there's a missing light here and there's a missing light here. So sometimes to make things look better, you take things out, not put them in.
Hey, if you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer, become part of the team that makes all of this possible, or you can simply donate if you'd like to support what we do here. That's officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. Any learnings from the mimolive session?
Alexander Knight, talk us through that. That sounds like it was fun.
Yeah, it was. So yesterday, Oliver and I did a little workshop, and we basically, from scratch, worked through setting up a template for mimolive that would allow me to cut the extra hours evening show. So it was really, really cool. I learned a lot. I mean, I feel like I barely scratched the surface of mimolive, been using it for the last year, and it really made me rethink about how I've set up my own show template for the podcast that I do, in terms of just like figuring out what's the most efficient way to do things and learning about functions in mimolive that I've never used. So, and it sounds like based on the feedback that we got from a lot of people, including Guy and other people that are part of the mimolive Discord group, that people also found it incredibly useful as well to watch. And he did record it, by the way. It will get posted.
Oh, excellent. When you find out a URL to access it, please come back and post it. I know a lot of people, including myself, would be very interested in taking a look at that, so thanks. Next question.
Michael Boynton in Richmond, Virginia is asking, what's the proper procedure for color balancing a camera shot for both IMAG and records? We typically white balance off a white card, but I feel like it's not enough.
Alex Lindsay's going to start us off here. Alex?
It depends. It depends on how much control you have over the IMAG. So how much can you actually calibrate the IMAG for something? What kind of lights are going to be in the scene that are going to be against that IMAG, which is usually a big challenge. What we do is that we balance for the IMAG, and then we record without that color, without that LUT, or without the whatever we're doing there. So we're recording log from the camera. So almost every camera that we use has the ability to record log. So we're going to record log into the camera. We're going to really balance for the IMAG. The other thing to remember is that if you record in Apple ProRes 422 HQ or higher, you're going to get a solid 10-bit image that there's a lot of room in there. So if you need to color correct it later to make up for that delta, if you're recording in 8-bit, you're not going to be able to move things without posterization. If you're close between the two and you're recording everything at 10-bit, you should have plenty of data there to make the fine adjustments that you need to make to pull them back together.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, this can be kind of a delicate dance because it depends on the white point of your IMAG, whether it's a projector or an LED wall. Depends on what they're using. A lot of projectors are set for 9300 Kelvin lamps, and so they're going to be daylight balanced. So if you've got talent on the stage that you're lighting, let's say with tungsten instruments, then you set your camera for the correct color rendition of the human on the stage being lit by tungsten. Then if you include the IMAG projection on the stage or behind them, it will be very blue if it's daylight balance. So then I would set your color balance correct for the lighting on that is there for the humans on the stage first, and set that balance, and then have a way, a proc amp or something, that you can adjust the color balance of the feed that's going to the IMAG. If you can't adjust the projector or LED wall itself, you'll have to process the signal and change its white point to match that of the cameras, so that if your cameras are balanced for tungsten, then you want to set it to a white point of 3400 or tungsten. And if you're shooting with daylight lights and daylight setting on your camera, then you want to have it balanced in the 8,000, between 6 and 9,000 area on your IMAG screen. So getting the white point to be the same on both the IMAG and the camera sensor and the lighting is the important point, to all get in the same ballpark.
Alex Lindsay, you want to come back in?
And again, a lot of times we just don't have time when we're on set to make that. So you make it look good on the iMag, record in 10-bit, and you'll be able to make the adjustment there, and it will look just the same. The LUT that was asked about earlier is a lookup table, and that is goes from the log that many cameras are capturing to, and converts it to the color image that you see on the output of the camera, or potentially the record. I try to avoid recording with LUTs on. Some cameras will let you do both, but usually what happens is our HyperDecks, I usually use HyperDecks that are downstream are capturing 10-bit for all the ISOs. The program, of course, is captured in 10-bit. IMAGs go back out, in whatever video signal we send to the IMAG, and then we record in the cameras in log or RAW or whatever they have there. And typically we're using Sony or Blackmagic or Arri or other cameras like that. And so you can do both of those typically. And if the camera captures correctly, you're going to have a really great big image that you can go back and work on.
Courtney, I'm sorry. I'm missing that. Next question.
Tommy Johnson, St. Paul, Minnesota, USA. Are any of you aware of production studios set up in libraries or school systems specifically for educators producing digital content for education?
I know Alex concerns himself with this a lot. Alex, your thoughts?
There's going to be one soon because the school that my kids go to said yes, that I can come play.
Alex has a test bed to work things out.
Yeah. Like I was like, how about we play here? And so they've the first step is they've approved me putting a grid across the entire room that they're planning to use. So it's going to be a little over a 20 by 20 grid. They already have some cameras and some other things, but we're going to start collecting gear to make something. But the first step is just teaching the students how to do it. But our goal is we're not really trying to do a all-in-one. What we're trying to do is use it as an opportunity to train the students. And so there'll be education, but the students are going to get, if I'm allowed to keep going, the students are going to be taught animation, using AI in animation, using AI as examples, building, doing multi-camera, doing green screen, doing like all of the things that are necessary to really turn the volume way up on examples for the teachers. So the first year is just figuring getting enough students that know it, and specifically sophomores, juniors, freshmen, because the seniors will get some of it. but the goal is that as we go into the following year, you have 100 people that you're training to do, and then bring teachers in and give them the opportunity to do much higher end solutions that might include a lot of different aspects of production.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, I already showed it once, but I'll show you one of the specific models that just got put into San Jacinto College. And this one, you can see that they got the optional package, which has the Wacom board so that you can telestrate. You've got the teleprompter. You've got your aperture lights. There's an Ultimat so you can green screen. Here's the button so you can move the person in your presentation around. But these are put in hundreds of libraries. Some universities even have 6 or 7 of these things. And we've just taken feedback and evolved this thing over the years. But it's pretty simple for somebody to come in and use. This is the view as you're standing in front of the unit, where you can see that that's a 24-inch prompter. And so if you're doing a Zoom call or if you want your notes up there, you can put your notes up there. That's the backlight there. Nice green screen. Again, that's going through an Ultimat in the mimolive and getting composited. And the key is very, very, very good. And you could choose your own background. And it's a very simple system. But those are one solution for this kind of problem.
Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, it's a great guy. I was going to ask you, was that a sound isolation cabinet that you have all the rack equipment built into, so you don't end up with the fans from any of your rack mounted equipment interfering with your audio?
It's not the ones that have the sound deadening inside of them. It is just a regular Middle Atlantic server rack, but the components inside are fairly quiet. There's Mac Minis running the thing, so there's 2 Mac Minis inside of it, which are really quiet, and then there's a audio mixer and the Ultimat. All that stuff's very quiet, so when you shut the door, it's not bad. Yeah, and then we do put sound dampening all around. So included in the package is these pieces of, gosh, I'm forgetting the name, but it's a sound dampening board that really helps dumb down some of these rooms, and it goes in the ceiling as well.
Thanks.
Next question.
Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington's asking, I heard the Sony FX6 was going to be discontinued. Any thoughts on a Mark II or what features would make it an even better fit in the market? Seems like the FX2 breaks the linear method of product features versus the FX3. Alex
Lindsay, your thoughts?
No, as we stated before, I think that the FX2 is significantly lower than the FX3 in most ways. It's less expensive, but it's also not as useful. I think I have shot with an FX3. I don't really like the form factor anymore. I really decided that I don't want to get any more cameras other than web cameras. I use an FX30 right now. Other than web cameras, I really like the box. Like I really want the box. So whether that's a Pixis or whether that's a FX6 or above or one of the other ones, I want a sensor box with buttons on the outside, and I don't need that many buttons. And I just kind of want it to all be kind of self-contained that way. We build so many kits, and I think that the camera companies are slowly getting around to it. And then they do this crazy thing where they build more of these, for the kids, I guess. but if you're doing anything that is going to be remotely complicated, You just want a box that has a sensor. And I think the FX6 did an incredible job at that. I've used the FX. We built the big rig that we did around FX6s. I use FX6s and FR7s a lot for production, and super happy with that form factor. So it'll be a bummer if I'm assuming that if they replace it, they're going to replace it with something else.
Hey, thank you for all the questions today. If we didn't get to your questions, if you came in through the Mukana system, they'll come back to your notes. If you came in through the QR code system, we'll hold on to those questions. They will return tomorrow. And our thanks to everybody involved with the show, to our producers, those of you who put questions in. Thank you so much. We can't do our show without your questions. That's what drives the whole thing. So thank you, producers, for putting those questions in. For the panelists, everybody you see on the screen in front of you, without the expertise of people freely coming here and sharing their decades of experience in production in the real world, we also couldn't do this job. So thank you, panelists. And to our amazing back-end crew, the people behind the scenes who are so skilled and so talented, literally all over the world, electronically touching this show every day to make it possible. Our undying thanks to all of you. The stats today are to lock traversal. If you had gone to the people you got answers from today watching the show, you would have had to travel 22,000 miles. That is 86,000 kilometers, 178 million bananas for scale. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you tomorrow and do the same thing again. Bye-bye.
Now I'm afraid to put the lights back up because everyone's like, "Oh,
everybody likes."
It looks so like. But if you jump into a meeting, the problem with this is that if you jump into a meeting, it looks so dramatic. Like,
I know,
like,
cinematic, Alex. It's like you're trying too hard for
yeah, exactly.
conference table.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, so I got to figure out how to control them separately. That might be the solution.
Just add film on the short side. You're going to be fine. So one light, click it on or off.
You need that Shatner Star Trek lighting with the slit of light right across the eye.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that was George Cukor back during the golden days of Hollywood in black and white. They had that dramatic slash across the eyes.
Yeah, exactly. All right, see you, buddy.
Courtney, the name of those sound panels was F-Zorb.
F-Zorb. Zorb.
Yeah.
F-Zorb with a Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kind of VO job I get. The F-Zorb. Say that 10 times fast.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.